Hello everyone, this is Mr. Sutherland, and today what we are going to do is review a little bit of what we were doing before we left on our break. And so you should have your notes from section 8.2 to maybe review some of these ideas, but we were talking about graphing parabolas, which is the graph of quadratic functions. So here is an example problem. So for example 1, you are given the function f of x is equal to 3 times x minus 4 squared plus 1. Now, from this equation, we are able to identify different characteristics for the graph of our quadratic, which remember we call a parabola. First thing we should be able to do is to determine which way does our graph open. So if you remember, to determine which way our graph opens, we look at this number that is what we call the a value. And in this case, it is positive, so this is a parabola that opens up. So over here to the right, I'm just going to sketch a parabola that opens up. The next thing we're able to do is determine what the vertex of this graph is. And so the vertex, if you remember, is this point that's either the maximum or minimum, depending on whether our graph opens up or down. And to determine the vertex, we look at the number with the x and this number on the outside. And if you remember what's in parentheses, if I have x minus 4, that means the x coordinate of the vertex is 4, and the y coordinate of the vertex is exactly what you see at the end, so it is positive 1. So we have a vertex at 4, 1. And then the last thing I want to do today is talk about what the range of this function is. And remember, the range is the set of y values. And so if I look at this graph, I can see that it's opening up and that this y value 1 is the smallest y value there is. So that means all my other y values have to be greater than or equal to 1. So these are some of the things that we did with the equation of a quadratic in vertex form. So what I would like you to do now, for example 2, I would like you to answer the same 3 questions. Which way does the graph open? What is the vertex? And what is the range? And your function is going to be f of x equals negative 2 times x plus 5 squared minus 6. Now what I would suggest now is that you pause the video, try the problem, and then unpause it to see if you did it correctly. Okay. Alright, so now you should have tried the problem. So for the first characteristic, which way does it open? Well, if we look at the a value here, in this case the a value is negative 2. So this should be a parabola that opens down. So it looks like that. The vertex of this parabola. Well, we kind of look at the equation. We look here, I have an x plus 5, so I do the opposite. So I got negative 5 for the x value. And then the y value, I use exactly what I see there as negative 6. So there's the vertex. And now my range for this one, well, now I have a y value of negative 6, which is the largest possible y value. So all my other y values have to be smaller, less than or equal to -6. So hopefully you were able to get most of those parts correct. All right, we have one more type of problem I want to do. We'll do it very similarly. I will do an example, and then I'll have one that I'd like you to pause the video and try to do on your own. So example 3. For this one, you are given a parabola that, I'm going to sketch a little picture of our graph, and it's going to look something like this. So it's a parabola that opens up. We know that the vertex of this graph is at -1, -4, and we have that it passes through the point -2, -2. And I want you to write the equation. Let's say write the quadratic equation for this parabola. Okay, so to start, we have what the vertex is. So if I were to start with my equation, I have f of x equals, since the x coordinate of my vertex is -1, I have x plus 1 in parentheses, and that gets squared. And since the y coordinate of my vertex is -4, I have a -4 here. Now what we don't know yet is, what is the a value? Now, we see it opens up, so we should be able to determine that the a value is positive, but we don't know what the exact value is. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this point that you see here on the left that I just highlighted. This is the x value, and this, the second value, is the y value, which we're calling f of x. And so now I'm going to substitute. I'm going to put -2 in for f of x, and I'm going to put -1 in for x. And then I'm going to do the steps to solve for a. So -2 plus 1 is -1 squared minus 4. -1 squared is 1, so this is really a minus 4. And now to solve for a, I'm going to add 4 to both sides, and I get the a value to be 2. So my final answer is f of x equals 2, that's the a value, x plus 1 squared minus 4. That's the equation of that parabola. So I want you guys to try it now on your own. So here you're going to do the same thing. Here is your example. So example 4, we're going to write the equation, and again I'm going to say quadratic equation. Remember, what makes it a quadratic is I have this little 2 up here as an exponent. Write the quadratic equation for the parabola. So let's say our parabola this time looks like this. We're going to do a parabola that goes like this. Let's say, oh, I'm sorry, not what I wanted. I actually want one this time that opens down. So we're going to have one that looks like this, where the vertex is at 3, 5, and it passes through the point 5, 3. So use your work that you saw for example 3, pause the video, try to do it, and then unpause the video and see how you did. Okay, everyone, let's see how you did. So, I'm just like last time, I'm going to start with what we know. The easiest thing to do first is use the vertex. So again, I have the x-coordinate is positive 3. So that means I'm going to have an x minus 3 and squared. And then the y-coordinate of the vertex is 5. So I just put a plus 5 here. Now we need to find the a value. So the a value is always here. And I'm going to use my point that I'm given here that I'm highlighting right now. And in this point, 5 is the x value, 3 is the y value, which we're going to call f of x. So where I see f of x, I'm going to put 3. Where I see x, I'm going to put 5. And now we have to do order of operations. So 5 minus 3 is 2. Now I can do 2 squared is 4. Subtract 5 from both sides. I get negative 2 equals 4a. And divide by 4. And I get a to be negative 0.5. And that makes sense. The a value is negative. Our graph is opening down. So the equation of our parabola is negative 0.5 x minus 3 squared plus 5. So I hope some of you were able to get that right. Now what you're going to do next on the assignment guide is log into Pearson Realize. Remember, you get to that through PowerSchool. So you'll log into PowerSchool. On the left side, you'll click Pearson Courses, and then you'll go to Algebra Studies LA Semester 2. I think there's an S2 after. Log in, and you should see an 8.2 review assignment. And you have, I think it's 5 or 6 problems to do for that. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to email me, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye.